Borys Potiatynyk, professor, Ukrainian Catholic University of Lviv. His topic, mediatization without journalists. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for inviting me and enabling to express a couple of thoughts, a couple of opinions. Actually, title "The Mediatization Without Journalism" may sound a bit odd. One may even say absurd. Most of us are accustomed to believing that mediatization as such actually began with journalists, and the journalist is at its core. So we will try to answer probably two questions, or at least properly put them. How realistic is the threat of the end of journalism? And is it probable that mediatization of society continue without journalism? There's a certain consensus today as to the key term in the title, I mean mediatization. So I probably will skip it. And we'll move on to journalism and the concept of the end of journalism, the key word for many articles that I was trying to analyze. Therefore, we will continue to focus on journalism and its fate. Where did the talk about the end of journalism come from? This phrase gained popularity at the turn of the millennium. We selected, according to a certain methodology, and analyzed about 50 publications of this topic, mostly in the English-speaking sector, but not only, including Ukrainian and Polish. It should be noted that the spread of this term took place against a certain background at the turn of the millennium, as I mentioned, when the number of various phrases with the word "end" began to grow significantly. End of work, end of everybody heard about that. End of work, end of democracy, end of history, and others. For example, famous book by Francis Fukuyama, The End of History and the Last Man, 1992, as we remember. The turn of the millennium, despite all the conventionality of the calendar, quite often in history correlated with eschatological expectation. Our Final Hour is the title of a book by British astronomer Martin Rees. Probably I would have used the presentation, but sorry. Is the title of a book by British astronomer Martin Rees, which states that the probability of the death or end of humanity in 2100 is 50%. Other apocalyptic titles in famous books speak of our final invention, artificial intelligence, and the end of the human era. Against this background, the phrase "the end of journalism" looks quite natural. However, in 2000, the idea of the end of journalism was generally viewed with skepticism. Tom Regan from Nieman Report 20 years ago, in his article "Technology is Changing Journalists" states, but the reality, it's quite, he sounds quite optimistic. But the reality is that the elements that make good journalism and good journalists will never change. Unfortunately, now we know that it wasn't so good. Probably we'll skip some. Particularly resonant in 2009 was the publication of the director of the BBC World Service, Peter Horrocks, "The End of Photos Journalism." The author calls for a reassessment of how journalism works. But why does he use the metaphor of photos? Photos journalism, he says, has been wonderful, powerful, long established institutions provided the perfect base for strong journalism, strong and expensive journalism. It used to be, probably still it works on some levels. Some analysts, such as Paweł Lisicki, former editor-in-chief of the Polish weekly Uważam, że, suggests that a small cohort of analysts and publicists is more likely to survive in a transformation situation, as new journalism may move into news journalism will move to a computer algorithm and artificial intelligence. Actually, the article probably it was mentioning Michael Rosenblum, the end of journalism in Huffington Post article from Huffington Post 5 years ago. He states that due to the deteriorating financial and economic conditions of journalists, only the dedicated few are willing to accept long hours and low pay, almost a kind of priesthood. Another one, I just trying to mention a couple from that amount. I mean, almost 50 articles. Margaret Simmons from The Guardian. A journalist faces a crisis worldwide. We might be entering a new dark age. But there are some things we can expect to see delivered more quickly than we might think. First, social media companies will begin to invest in quality content, because otherwise they will lose their audiences. Well, actually, we read a lot about Google and Facebook, and the information is the new oil, and Google and Facebook will have to invest. But she is trying to look at China. This is not merely wishful thinking, she says. In China, WeChat, owned by Tencent Corporation, is the dominant social media engine and has functionality that makes Facebook and Twitter look old-fashioned. If you want to know what's coming next in social media, look to China, she says. WeChat is investing a lot of money in original journalists, including trying to and supporting some oppositional journalists, which is quite interesting on that background, Chinese background. Roy Greensland, journalist is a founder, but there is a light. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel, he says. Instead of paywall, we'll call it a free wall. Actually, Guardian is trying to use it. A conclusion. We skipped a lot of material, but a conclusion. Journalism is undergoing a rapid transformation. In my opinion, we can say with a high degree of probability that media brands such as the New York Times, Süddeutsche Zeitung, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, Le Monde, in many countries, like elites, papers and media, will retain their influence in digital and paper formats. Both television and radio brands, well-known brands, will retain their importance on a cross-platform basis, primarily given the public interest in audio and video formats, taking into account the interest in personalized authorial narratives genres. The fate of most weekend newsrooms, especially local newsrooms, especially regional ones, which are still losing the fierce competition for the attention of the audience, is worrying. However, we are just observing the efforts to start discussion at the national and global level about the ways to preserve quality journalism as a valuable public asset with a centuries-old history, professional ethos, and tools for collecting, verifying, and presenting information. This discussion, discussion in many countries and on global level, gives us hope that appropriate models of media financing will be found, including the redistribution of income from information technology giants and the state. Especially in the United States, it's very popular to use state money for developing public media and so on. In this case, journalists will continue to be a significant factor in the mediatization of society, although the overall configuration of both journalist and mediatization processes may change. Thank you very much. That's all.
If there are any question, comments, or discussion for this theme, for the topic that just mentioned Mr. Potiatynyk. Borys, thank you. Also, I wanted to add some more comments from the book that just wrote Nick Davis in his News of Flat Earth about some sphere and era of press releases, and also about falling down into fakes, into some information that has no arguments, has no facts, has no reasons to believe, and we just floating in a sort of like in a sea of some information trash. And maybe you could say some solutions just for your subjective opinion, like how to avoid the situation, what we have to do, and how to deal with this era of press releases, how to return to the to good quality journalism, to some issues that help us to open mind to this world and to understand how it's going around.
Thank you.
I guess that's my question.
Nazar, you gave the answer. You provided the answer because quality journalism is something opposite to using a lot of press releases, and weak journalists actually use it more on a regular basis, and quality journalists will filter out, and will properly work with it as one source of materials. But this is not the case with weak journalism, with small editorial offices, small newsroom, with small payments. So we are coming back to the same question: how to retain quality journalism.
So is it an economic motivation, or is it a neutral motivation, like something that has to?
I actually mentioned Rosenblum. He has that journalists are going to be a new priesthood. Probably it sounds ironically, but he says that he believes that new priesthood. But frankly, I don't believe that without economical motivation, as you said, without good payment, that journalism priesthood will be quite effective. I'm not sure. So we have to find economical, financial redistribution, including information as new oil in this world, as Chinese experience says that she says that if you want, I mean that one of my author writes that if you want to know what is going to be tomorrow, we have to have a look at China media, and actually China is trying some big tech, Chinese big tech, is trying to support quality journalism and even oppositional journalists, as I mentioned.
Okay, thank you a lot. This was quite interesting and good speech. Thank you a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
But I think that this topic could.
There is Yuri Zeleznyakis.
Yura, do you have any questions?
I saw the
hand.
Yes, actually, I have a question. Borys, thank you so much for your profound thoughts. And my question is, could you name the group that, due to your vision, is the main or number one beneficiary of saving the journalism as the profession? Because I recollected the title of the book of Charlie Beckett, super media, saving journalism so it can save the world. So my question is, who is the biggest beneficiary of such kind of possibility that journalism, professional journalism, healthy journalism, responsible journalism has to be saved? Since due to my observation, the most interested party has to be informed in an appropriate way about its interest. I mean, if that's this party is social, society or politicians, because in long-term distance, this party financing or in different type of saving the journalism may ask about some kind of return or something. Don't you think so? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Frankly, I see the main beneficiary of quality journalism and saving of quality journalism is whole country. Ukraine, Germany, United States. After that, Donald Trump policy against trying to compromise, trying to discredit media, we understand this is very important. So actually all people, nations are beneficiaries. In terms of just media sector, if we are talking about importance of quality journalism, saving quality journalists, the main beneficiary right now are big brand elite media, like I mentioned CNN, BBC, Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, Die Zeit, Süddeutsche Zeitung, Le Monde, Wall Street Journal, etc., etc. So they are strong enough, and they are getting even stronger with support of that efforts to save journalism. But we have to move on to local newspaper, local radio, local media generally, because there is a gap between elite, between big brands that are doing well, and the rest of the media. So I wish that local media, small newsroom will get some support, included from this discussion. Thank you.
May I continue the discussion? Thank you for this localization of your answer. I mean, going down on the local level, because to my mind, despite that big media outlets worldwide are strong enough, as you said, they still need journalism to be saved by everybody, as you mentioned, because beneficiaries are all the people around the world. But don't you think that trying to convince everybody that they are obliged to save journalism due to their own interests means to inform nobody? You have to be more specific. I mean, you have to have a particular targeted audience to influence them, and due to that fact, spread their influence in the society. So,
it's very interesting. It's interesting move. So, and what parts of audience would you like to target? First of all,
actually, that was my first question to you, because you said everybody are the beneficiaries. So you have to target the actual beneficiary, number one beneficiaries, who's gonna influence other beneficiaries. I mean,
it came to mind that first of all, intellectuals, politicians, businessmen, who else? What do you think? Because this is your turn to support that.
I believe that sometimes even journalists have to be transformed in some way, because if you want somebody to save you, your profession, your business, you have to ask yourself why it's in such kind of situation that it has to be saved. Maybe something is wrong with the tradition, with the standard, with the profession as a whole, and maybe even with you, because everything starts on the smallest level, on the local level, personal level, and then we can spread it to the whole country or the universe.
Well, thank you. I love just your direction of your mind. Thank you so much, especially that one about targeted audience concerning quality journalism. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you.